Hey fam, thanks for joining in today. So, I had so much fun with today's guest that I actually completely forgot to do an intro and I forgot to give you guys a way to get in touch with her if you want to learn more, if you want to work with her or anything. She's doing some really exciting stuff. Her name is D. Carolina. And first things first, you can get in touch with her via Instagram at identity.sanctuary. And she is, she's many different things, and you'll hear about it all through the episode. She's a bit of a multi talented, multi dimensional creatrix, as her Instagram says. I love that title. And she's a holistic personal branding coach. She's a teacher of neuroenergetics, which she explains a little bit more in detail in the episode. And she's actually got a new course very soon coming out, and it's called Brand Breakthrough Blueprint. It's targeted to female founders, service providers, and coaches. So this is for women who are somewhat established already, or they're ready to go all in and step into the limelight. It's for women who are ready to shift their mindset, expand their capacity to be seen, and implement a foundational strategy that can convert followers to clients through branding. Most personal branding coaches are all about tactics and traditional marketing. And this is what I love about Dee. And she is so 100% genuine. She's done all of the work herself. And now she is practicing what she preaches. She's teaching what she's learned herself in her own journey. And she really is one who is connection focused. Community and authenticity are at the core of everything she does. And I think you'll see that for yourself when you have a listen to her. So I'll jump out of the way now. Enjoy the episode and feel free to get in touch with Dee if you want to know more about anything that she's working on now. Bye.
You know, social media is this beautiful monster that you can really harness in your favor as long as it doesn't take over. And yes, social media is essential for business today, but the one thing that I always remind my clients about is that it's just a tool. It cannot be the beginning and end of everything you do. You know, surgeons don't go around thinking about their scalpel all day. It's essential, it's sharp, it's absolutely powerful, but it's just a tool.
Welcome to Trujectory, the podcast committed to helping you align with who you really are, your true self. The one who is so comfortable with their uniqueness, so in love with life, and so effortlessly able to manifest everything they always dreamt of. I want this podcast to be a resource to help you jump into the driver's seat rather than continuing as a passenger in your own story. Let's understand why we choose to hold ourselves back so we can shed the lies that we've programmed into our minds. We can heal the root causes and step into the epic human that we know we can be. If you're ready to start aligning with your trajectory, let's do it. So we are here with Deanna today, with Dee. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited that she is here all the way from the other side of the world, UK. And hi Dee, hi. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to help you with the journey and be part of it. And yeah, there's so much connection here.
Honestly, I'm so grateful for your time because I know you are a busy woman. You have so many things going on. And even in setting up for this interview, I was wondering what is your title? If you have a title, not everyone needs a title, but as I was looking at all of the things you do, how could you even boil it down into one thing?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. Like every entrepreneur out there, I wear many hats. So depending on the situation, it does change. Generally, I'm a personal branding mentor, but I do infuse that with so many holistic techniques and everything. And I have other businesses going on, so it could be serial entrepreneur or personal branding mentor or whatever you want. I don't think you need one, to be honest. These days, we're all multi-dimensional beings. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Just Deanna works, I guess.
I was gonna say I like the title of Deanna. D. That's a good
that
one.
works best. That one won't change.
But honestly, as soon as I saw your profile on Instagram, and it's funny, this is definitely one of those beautiful soul connections that, I mean, this is the first time we've met,
definitely.
and it feels like I'm just catching up with an old mate. Like, it's just such beautiful
absolutely.
energy with you.
Same.
And
same. Absolutely.
Oh, that's so good to hear. And when I checked out your profile for the first time, I'm only just sort of stepping into my path, my true soul work, the things that I've been wanting to do for so long. I just didn't know how to crystallize the message, how to really hone in on what it is I'm trying to say, why it is that I'm trying to say it, and what my ultimate goals are. And I'm sure we can talk about that because that's what you're an expert in. But when I looked at your profile, it was like everything that I had just finally figured out. Oh, here's someone who's doing the exact sort of thing that I want to do. And it's all about just being authentic, right? So there are many people who obviously help people with their social media, with building and developing their businesses and creating their brands. But I haven't seen a lot of people, as you do, emphasize the importance of authenticity in all that you do when it comes to social media, branding, and your business. So can you tell us a little bit about how you stepped into this work? Give us a little bit of your background, because I know you have a huge past. You used to be a influencer and all sorts of other roles. So maybe give us a little bit of a background and tell us how you ended up focusing in on helping people be really, truly authentic.
Well, I guess we're always our first case study ourselves. I started, like you say, as an influencer, and I changed and I pivoted so many times within that. I was an environmentalist, and then I went into fashion and then into wellness, and I was always scared of losing my audience. It kept growing, and there's a lot of pressure working with brands and keeping things afloat. Even if you're struggling on a personal level or going through things because life happens, you always have to keep this cool demeanor at all times. And I figured that the best way to do that is just to be authentic. It completely burns you out trying to be something you're not, trying to play the social media game for others or trying to please an audience. It's just not sustainable in any way possible. So the only way to do it long term and not burn out and not hate what you're doing and actually succeed in a way that it feels nourishing and satisfying for yourself is by being authentic and staying true, and knowing that everybody else who's watching will also pivot, will also shift, will also struggle. And that's what we want to hear. Everything has been so fake up until recently in social media, the highlights reel and every perfect life and all these perfect bodies that are highly, highly photoshopped and filtered most of the time. I mean, there are some gorgeous women out there and men, but most of the time, even they feel a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of pressure. And it's just not healthy for the person creating it or the people watching it. So I really encourage authenticity. We were talking about my children a few minutes ago, and that is what I want them to come into, because social media is now an extension of ourselves. It's unavoidable. It's not going absolutely anywhere. And I'd love for the next generation to be more like free, just free to be themselves, less pressure, less feeling like they need to become something or follow an ideal of success that isn't theirs. So this is where authenticity comes from, or the need for authenticity on my part. And on a personal level, I think that I'm drawn to people who have integrity, who do the things that they say they are going to do, the people who live the way they want to live or they're aiming for. And that just changes the dynamic, the relationship, the energetics of everything around you when you do live in integrity and alignment. And for me, that's the way I live my life. That's always something that I pull back to when I'm, moving away from my center. And yeah, it's just authenticity is the way forth.
That is so beautiful. And I love your thoughts on, your children and their generation coming up. Can you imagine the difference in how, like you said, if we can continue to spread these sorts of messages about authenticity and owning your quirks and all your uniqueness and all of the things that make you different, instead of kids having their main program, their main desire to fit in and not shine in any way, it's imagine them all being curious about one another and going, that person is so different, that's cool, like that's a cool thing, it's not weird, And,
exactly, it's normal.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I mean, there's so many topics that we're going to get into. You mentioned energetics. I do want to get into neuroenergetics because that's a new term for me. I haven't learned about that one yet. But before we get into that, how big of a deal, like you said, social media isn't going anywhere. How big of a deal do you believe social media is in business in particular today?
Well, that's a tricky question. It really does depend what you do. I know if you're in brick and mortar business and some people don't need to create leads or create a connection with the end customer, then social media is truly irrelevant. But really, in 2023, 24, that is not the reality for most people. And my thing is personal brands. If you are building a personal brand, if you're a coach, a service provider, if you're looking to get leads in any way or market yourself in any way on social media, I would say social media, your personal brand, is even more important than your business. And when I say that, it always ruffles some feathers because, it puts a lot of pressure on social media. But if your business fails, and most businesses do fail or transmute and become something else because you're evolving as a human, so will your business. If that fails, you will always have your social media, your audience, your personal brand to fall back on, and you can start from scratch over and over and over again. And if that's done correctly, your audience will see your failures, connect with you, help you through, help you succeed. And it's a beautiful process. They become part of the process and they become so invested in you. And I've seen it with my clients and myself. And, social media is this beautiful monster that you can really harness in your favor as long as it doesn't take over. And yes, social media is essential for business today. But the one thing I always remind my clients about is that it's just a tool. It cannot be the beginning and end of everything you do. Surgeons don't go around thinking about their scalpel all day. It's essential, it's sharp, it's absolutely powerful, but it's just a tool. So you have to have a healthy relationship with it, but understand how powerful it is and how essential it can be on your business, for your business. Yeah.
That's such a great analogy. That is such a great analogy. And I was just thinking, from my personal perspective and my experience with social media, I'm only just now stepping into, like I said, my soul work. So I'm finally using it to sort of spread the true core message that I want to spread and creating a business around that. Previously, it was always just personal use. And so there was this transition period where I would go to social media for pleasure, right? To connect with people, to interact with my friends, or to find new people, or to look up whatever it was. And now stepping into the business side of it, there is really that balancing act where you've got to make sure that, if I'm not careful, I can go to do a couple of things for my business and I could look at my phone and an hour has passed and I'm going, oh my gosh, what just happened? And we joke about that, but it is a reality. So do you have any hacks around that? How do you make sure you don't fall down the rabbit hole every time you do a business? Do you have an alarm that goes off?
I have tried that. I'm not going to lie. I have tried that. I think to a certain extent it's unavoidable because the algorithm is designed to draw you in. So first of all, I really believe I have different accounts, right? I have my personal brand, I have my business sis accounts, and then I have a personal one where it's the only place where I share personal stuff, my children, and connect with people who I know face to face, like family and things. And there I allow myself to just look at all the memes and waste all the time I want to. But on my other ones, I like to train my algorithms before they train me, which means that as soon as I turn on one of these business accounts, I only allow myself to research or to interact with my ideal customers, or people who are engaging with, or people in my industry, whatever that business might be, and really make an effort to not be drawn to all the cool posts that are being thrown that the thing knows I like, the thing knows I'm interested in because it listens, and every conversation you have or whatnot, it's true, it does. Right. And it's wild and it's crazy and it's hard to stay focused, but I try not to consume. I think it's just a little bit of mindfulness. But we are all victims of that. I cannot say I'm the best at it. Usually my alarm is my husband. He's like, come on, you've been too long on that thing. Yeah. All right, fine, you're
that'll
right.
That'll work.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Back to reality.
Absolutely. Very much.
So what do you find in your experience, what do you find the biggest mistakes are that people make when they're using their social media, for their purpose work?
That's a really, really good question. And I think I have to say boundaries. Having boundaries that are too hard and not having them at all. I feel when you're creating, you have to have boundaries. You have to know what you want to share, where you draw the line. You have to have like a sacred space for yourself, because privacy really is luxury these days, and you have to guard that. And when you start oversharing, that can become very dangerous to yourself. I mean, I've had people stalk me. I have people know too much information. And it can become physically dangerous to your person, but it also can become internally dangerous, because then you start overthinking, like, I shouldn't have shared that, cringe moment. And then years down the line, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. And, it gets really messy. So boundaries as a social creator are essential. And on the other side, on the flip side, having boundaries that are too stiff can also harm you. I see a lot of entrepreneurs not wanting to be vulnerable, not wanting to share absolutely anything about their personal lives. And whereas, yes, that's a strategy, and yes, that is safer, that feels more comfortable, it also can dilute your connection with your audience. And it's a very, very fine line. You have to find a sweet spot. It takes, trial and error. But being clear on your boundaries, you can build an entire strategy around that, and make it work.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah. I really, really love that. And like you're saying, if you had too stricter boundaries, you're not being your authentic self all the time either. So you're sort of, cutting that out a little bit. But the vulnerability piece is really interesting to me. I've been working on that myself, being more vulnerable, being more real, but also not just for the sake of being vulnerable because vulnerable is a trend now. You know what I mean? And it's really interesting. Like, it's so interesting how humanity, obviously we're in this beautiful time of awakening. There's so many people, shifting into all these enlightened states, and it's fantastic. But at the same time, things like that are positives, we're understanding now that being vulnerable is to be courageous. It's not two ends of the spectrum. It takes so much courage to be vulnerable, but then it does get tainted a little bit when it gets, like you were saying, diluted, and so many people are just going, I'm just going to be vulnerable, and then you might have a cringe moment a few years later going, what was the point in that? So again, I feel it comes back to being authentic and going, well, what is truly inside of me needing to come out right now? And is that just for my ego, or is there a call for that right now? Is there some reason? Understanding why you're saying it is probably helpful. I'm still learning all of these things myself.
we all are, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head there. I think the key is having a purpose. If you share vulnerably, or if you share something personal, it has to have a purpose. Otherwise, it has no place in your social media.
I love that. I will remember that as well. That's what I'm aiming for. I do occasionally, because I'm, in this new world now, I'm going, okay, there's a certain amount of times I want to post today. So I do find myself every couple of days feeling the need to post just because it's time to post. And sometimes I have to pause and hold myself back and go, you know what? You're just going to post something that doesn't actually have meaning, doesn't have resonance with anyone, just because you're feeling pressured to post. So step back for a sec. And so, I think these are my boundaries are coming into play, I think, which is good.
Excellent. Yeah.
Totally. So what is it? What is neuroenergetics? Can you explain this to me? This sounds fascinating. It sounds like a combination of a lot of things I love.
It is. Well, neuroenergetics is practically a new science. You're starting to see a lot of people like Joe Dispenza bring it up, and it's all based on the principle that we are electromagnetic beings, right? Your heart and your brain are always producing these waves that are either electrical or magnetic, and you create a field of energy that, transcends everything. And it sounds like absolute woo-woo, but guys, check it out. Tell your audience to just go down that rabbit hole, and it's honestly all science-based.
Joe Dispenza is the reason I had my awakening. So please keep going. If the word Dispenza was next to the word neuroenergetics, I wouldn't have even had to ask this question. He is, oh my gosh. So yes, I definitely back that up.
Yeah,
So when did
100%.
you?
I've done, yeah, some of his meditations, and it's just like, yeah. Sorry,
Honestly.
go ahead.
No, you're fine. Sorry, I think there was a bit of a delay.
So
But
excited.
have you been to any of his seminars or workshops or anything like that?
No, I have followed him for quite some time. I've read all his stuff. I have basically all his meditations. I have had some crazy awakenings doing his walking meditations. And doing one of his seminars is on my bucket list, but I just
Same.
haven't managed to. They're always booked out. We should go to the same one. Oh
Right?
my God. Let's do
Honestly,
it. Let's book
honestly,
it.
let's do it.
That'd be amazing.
But
Yeah.
we have to have someone on the inside though, because it's like he's like a rock star now. He puts it out,
Yeah.
it's tickets are on sale, 10 minutes later they're all gone. And
That's my
for
problem.
anyone that's the thing. But for anyone
Yeah.
listening who hasn't looked into this, and I mean it's so funny because if like in a few of my solo episodes, I mention him in almost every episode because the work he's doing is so important. And the reason these huge, they're not just workshops, they're like stadium tour events. The reason they're selling out is because people are having the most enormous transformations in their health. If they're coming in blind, and some people are leaving with their sight again, stage 4 cancer in remission on the way out. It's incredible. So this is the world we're living in now. And so you're one of those beautiful people who are understanding that, and understanding that we still need to support ourselves and have a job, and how do we put them together to make it coherent and make it all flow so that we are, because we're electromagnetic beings, so that we're just manifesting our reality with ease. And I mean, that's the core of what I want to teach people as well. But how important do you think that healing is in all of this? Where do you think that sort of sits into the equation?
Wow. Well, I think healing is something that was taught in the ancient times as part of an essential part of being human. It's something that should be taught in schools, regardless of, the trend or the path of the school. It's something children need to know, something we needed to know when we were little, because it is like a divine right to be able to heal yourself, to be able to really tap into your power. And this is something we were not aware of. I think it's absolutely essential. And I think that healing or doing work on yourself is absolutely parallel to being on social media, to having a business, because the more you realize that your power, the more you tap into that potential, the easier you flow, the more aligned you are with what you should be doing, the easier things are going to be in your business, in social media, in your relationships, in your life. And we are co-creators. You are here to create your reality. And if you're not healing, we call it healing, but it's just being, allowing yourself to be. And we're so constricted by society. You should do this and you have to do that, and this is what success looks like, and this is how you have to dress if you're this person, and you have to have labels, and you have to, it just makes you smaller, and it shrinks you and it shrinks you until you disappear and you just become a minion, like one of many. So it's crazy.
Following. It's
Yeah.
so incredible. It is so amazing to just hear you talk about that. It sounds like I'm listening to myself, and however egoic that may sound, that's what it sounds like, because these are the sorts of things. And I mean, I had quite a late awakening in my life. I'm 36 now, and I woke up when I was 31, 32. And it's only in the last sort of year that I've finally come out of my extremely prolonged dark night of the soul and have started to, put all of the things that I've learned into practice. But I just became a sponge of, oh my God, this is real, and you can do this, and we could always do this, but we didn't know this. And I'm just wondering, and if you can't think of them, it's okay. I'm really bad when people ask me something on the spot to think of an example. I'm like, oh, what? I've got 50,000 examples. I can't think of any. But can you remember any times that manifestation just blew your mind, where you were wanting something or needing something to happen, or needing the universe to show up for you, and you were like, oh my God, my mind just got blown. I'm never doubting anything again.
Yes, absolutely. This is absolutely crazy. And this is the first time I tell it on a podcast. This is something I just tell over dinner parties after a few bottles of wine or whatever. I don't drink that much. But
Amazing.
yeah, when I was in college, in the first year of college, we were playing around. My friends and I were crazy, and we'd go into the library and read all these physics books out of all the things,
Love it.
Yeah, and we came across manifestation through science and that kind of thing. So school was in Salem, Massachusetts, where all the witchcraft and all these things were. So we decided to do a bonfire
What?
in the forest and make like a ritual, a manifestation ritual. And we had just watched, we were really into that. We were just, messing about. I had just watched that movie with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock, where they're witches. And one of them
Yeah.
asked for
Practical
a husband
magic.
with a blue.
Love it.
Yeah, but that's it. Practical magic. I love that you know this. So
Yeah.
one of them manifested a husband with a blue and a green eye. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to test this. I want to see if this is real. I'm going to ask for the same thing. And lo and behold, about 10 years later, my husband, we met through a friend over the phone. And when we eventually met, the first thing that struck me was that he had one blue and one green. And basically the first meeting was like, we were together for 2 days and like, this is it, we're going to get married. And that was it. So from that point on, I'm like, okay, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. Like, there's no doubting it. Yeah. So that was crazy. And it could just be coincidence, but yeah.
No. This is the thing. There have been too many for me personally now. And like I said, it's only been like 5 years for me, but I got really, first of all, let me just say that's incredible. And I do love that movie. And I always, when I was a kid, wondered if that was possible. And I never actually connected the two, like thinking about what they were doing in that movie, manifesting and stuff like that. But that is incredible that he has one eye of each. Because I remember that actor very clearly. I remember that whole thing. I got really greedy when I first woke up because I was such a skeptic. I mean, look, I think we all have the skeptic side in us, right? Because we grew up so long. Well, not all of us, but myself, I grew up in a very nothing is real outside of your senses sort of thing. So the skepticism kicked in when I started having these visceral things happening in my body, and I was energy healing with people and getting really intense feedback from people. And I wouldn't tell them anything. I'd sort of say, I'm going to do something. Can you just lay down on your bed and I'm going to call you in 10 minutes and you just tell me what happened? But just, is that okay? Because I need permission, right? So I'm like, is that okay? And they're like, okay. So we'd do some healing sessions and they'd come back and say, I just saw you floating over my body. I just saw purple light coming into my ear hole or something. And I'm like, well, I didn't see anything. I'm just laying there doing my thing, like mentally. But I just did I asked so many times to prove it to me, like to the universe. And it just kept proving it to me with numbers. I found out what my number is. I found out what my spirit animal is. I didn't know what that was. And that was actually what really, really woke me up. And I actually did a whole podcast about that because there's too many stories. Yeah, there's just too many stories. It's about the dragon. And
cool.
Yeah, so it just kept coming into my world. But this is the thing, right? Is always, because I'm sure you're quite similar. I'm always investigating. I'm always wanting to know a little bit more. At the same time, trying not to be using the analytical mind too much, like trying to just let go and be in flow. So there's this constant balance of, but what about this? And what example? And can I get another, scenario here? And can I get another synchronicity? And can I, and it gets a little bit too much. So how do you incorporate, how does spirituality sit into your world right now? I mean, sometimes people say, I'm spiritual. And I go, well, we're all spiritual. We're all spiritual beings in physical bodies. So to say I'm spiritual is kind of like saying, I have a face. But do you have any sort of practices or anything that you do on a daily basis to keep you connected to your true self, to your higher self?
I was wondering about this just the other day because for the longest time I was a morning ritual kind of person. I would wake up and sage and have a yoga practice and matcha and juicing and all these things. And, just life happens and it gets so busy sometimes that I now have adopted a different philosophy. Rather than having a set daily ritual, I sort of sit with myself most days and say, okay, what do I need today? And I have found it's really, really linked up with my menstrual cycle. So depending on the phase, I need different things because your energy is different. So it changes. I do like to sage in the mornings or after a strong session. I do breathwork sessions in my office. So when that's really intense, I definitely do a cleanse. And I try to do that on a weekly basis. I do breath work for however short that might be, that just to ground myself. That's definitely every day, but not at the same time necessarily. And everything else, I just kind of wing it. I have an arsenal of rituals that I can tap into, but nothing set in stone. I think breathing and visualizing would be my go-tos. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's the goal, right? You sort of wake up and, like you said, you build your arsenal, you learn all of the things that you need, and you start to add these beautiful little habits here and there. And then the point is to sort of get back to, I think when people wake up, and I could just be speaking for myself, but I've seen a few people that have fallen into this trap as well as me. When you wake up, you sort of, like a pendulum swing, go all the way over to the spiritual side, the metaphysical side, and you sort of forget about the 3D and the necessity of the body and all of that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And so, like you're saying, you've sort of just incorporated everything you've learned into, now you're just sort of walking your path, and it's coming in when you're needing. But it sounds like you're sort of channeling your team when you feel the time to, and you're just receiving guidance, however naturally that may come through, and you're just following it. So that sounds incredible.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it like that, but yeah, absolutely. I have to wing it a bit.
Yeah, it's great. But you're definitely, I mean, you're in your purpose work, so that's a huge part of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
have you ever had a job you didn't like? Have you ever had like a 9 to 5 where you're like, do I have to go there today?
Well, yeah, actually, when I first graduated, I wanted to save the world. I was all about the environment. I still am very environmentally conscious and very minimalistic living and all that. But I was obsessed, and my dream was to work with the United Nations. And I went in as an intern. Within a week, I was offered a job, and I absolutely hated it. I realized that was just not it wasn't the path for me. Just going into a very diplomatic, very stiff. I mean, it was still very bohemian because of the offices and all of these things, but the bureaucracy going on, the bullshit. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse you.
Oh, of course. Fuck yes, you can.
Okay, excellent. Going on, and it just wasn't what I expected, and I stayed there for much longer than I needed to. Just, I didn't know what else to do. And I think a lot of us follow that path, like this is the pinnacle, this is success, this is what it looks like, and I'm going to work everything and put everything in it, get there, and they're like, oh, underwhelming.
That's so true. Yeah, it's so true. I was just thinking about that today. I think I actually did a post. I'm posting so often now, I can't remember what I've posted. But there was something that was it was about that exact thing, that we're sort of all going towards the goal rather than finding joy in the process and loving every minute along the way. Because, I mean, the process is this much of it. The goal's this much. It's like just this little moment at the end where all the process is concluded. And usually we're so hard on ourselves that we go, okay, that was great. We barely even celebrate. And we're like, okay, what's next? So you're heading towards this goal, which is just a little blip in reality. But I have to say, I love that you totally understand me then when I say the reason I'm doing this work is because I worked in the government for 7 years.
Oh,
and
God, yeah, I
so
get it.
You get it, right? So, hats off to anyone who is still doing it today, who can do it, who it aligns with. But as a creative person, it was something that it was from the ages of 17 to 24, so I was quite young, and I'm living in Canberra, which is sort of like the Washington DC of Australia. So it's all the government is here, not all of it, but a big majority, in Parliament House and everything. And I did that purely based out of fear, because every person around me was showing me the example and telling me that if you don't focus on getting a job that has good money, then life's going to suck for you. You got no chances. So there was none of this, I had so many dreams and everything, but I kept telling myself, I've got to put the dreams on the back burner. I'll get to them once I've made so much money, this or that. And I ended up making plenty of money. And all I ended up doing was I kept going overseas. I went to LA many times. I went to London. I went, to Europe and stuff like that, just to keep getting away. And I didn't realize, it took me a little while to go, I can't live like this for the rest of my life, just running away and then making a lot of money doing something I hate and then running away again. Like, the highlight of every day was lunchtime or Friday afternoon. And that sort of template is what I want to help people break out of. I do not like seeing people going to 9 to 5s that they hate. So the work that you're doing, the work that I'm stepping into, I just feel it's so important, because all it takes is for people to believe in themselves. And sometimes they don't have anyone in their world who will believe in them. And even if they do believe in them, they might not say that they believe in them. So they might not never, might not never, good English. Yeah. They might not ever find that out. So absolutely. Yeah, it's just,
it's mind blowing. So what is the highlight of your days now? Definitely not lunch.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? It's probably the mornings. I'm actually in that morning period phase where I have just created the most wonderful morning routine. It makes me smile, like, every time I talk about it, because it's like every time I go to bed, I've had a beautiful day. I'm so grateful every day, and I have been this way for 12 years now. I've been so grateful to be out of that system, but now it's like, I just remember so vividly, it was so ingrained in my system that you wake up and you're like, another day, let's do it again, it's almost the weekend. And I literally lose track of days now. Like, sometimes I have a shoot on a weekend, like a video shoot, and then Monday's all out of whack, and I feel like Monday's Friday, and someone tells me it's the weekend. I'm like, oh, I thought it was Tuesday. That's okay. But I genuinely... That's amazing. I think that's such a good metric of you doing what you love, right? When you lose track of time. But yeah, genuinely the mornings, I have so many little, things, processes, rituals that I do for myself. I was in a relationship for 10 years. I've only been out of that for a year and a half now. So it's time for me to focus on me, like, really deeply. And I'm genuinely loving that. And I mean, me a year ago, 2 years ago, would have thought, that's so selfish. But I'm so grateful to just like, you deserve this, honey. It's okay.
Yes. Absolutely. You certainly do. And it's so healthy to do that.
Honestly, that's the thing.
Happy for you.
Thank you, love. I appreciate it.
I love that. I love your energy.
Well, speaking of something that we have in common, which is super random and I love it, at the end of my podcast, and it's funny because with my guest podcast, I've been forgetting to say it because I get so excited and like wrapped up in the conversation. But in my solo podcast, I always end it with stay you, stay true. And when I'm flipping through Dee's Instagram and did her masterclass, and I've done some work with her, I've gone, she's signing off as stay true. Like, what are the chances? That's incredible. So where did that come from for you? Is that something you've said for a long time, or?
No, it's funny. I started saying it to one of my clients on Zoom calls, just as a reminder to her. And then one day I hung up and I'm like, I need to tell this to everyone. Like, everybody needs to remember to stay true. And what I mean is stay true to you, stay aligned. Don't lie to yourself. That's what authenticity is, because many times we're not being authentic because of external factors, but because we're lying to ourselves. We don't even realize we're not being authentic. So stay true is just a little reminder to, pull back and recenter and ask yourself, who am I? Who do I want to be today? Never mind 10 years from now. Who do I want to be today? What's going to really bring me joy? What's going to really align me to this human experience? What's going to really make me feel alive today? And that's what staying true means to me. What about you?
I absolutely love that. It's very, very similar. It's exactly that. It's that people don't know that they're not being themselves half the time. And I mean, even in my own journey, I thought I was being quite authentic for a long time, until I sort of started to really do the deep healing work and look at myself and go, okay, your personality is changing around many different people, and there's so many variables as well, right? I've learned that I can't speak in too much absolute language, like I never do this, always do this, because everything changes, right? And when I say I have multiple different hats that I wear, that I realized I was wearing for different people, or different masks, I was putting on different sort of versions of myself, there is a part of that is a natural gift of mine, that I'm able to make people feel comfortable. I'm great at building rapport with people. And again, something I couldn't admit about myself a couple of years ago because I didn't have that self-love. So I'm not beating myself up for that. But at the same time, for a long time, I actually was quite a people pleaser, because there's a couple of reasons. One is that I'm very empathic. So I'm feeling what you're feeling. So if I'm making you uncomfortable, I'm also uncomfortable. And then there's no one comfortable in the situation, and it's frustrating. But I've obviously learnt the importance of having tough conversations these days, and the beauty of just being clear in your communication, even if it isn't what you think someone wants to hear. But I'd love to share with you, I haven't really shared this publicly before, but this was a big reason why I went into people pleaser mode when I was younger. When I was up until the age of 12, I was like fire. I was like, I do things my way. I do whatever I want, when I want. You do this, break up with that guy. Wait, he's going to give me a birthday present. Okay, break up with him after he gives me my birthday present, and then ask him out. Like, it was insane. When I look back, I was like, is that the same person? But there was this one, it's crazy. It's so crazy. But there was this one girl, this beautiful girl who at the time, obviously I didn't think she was beautiful, because I was quite crushed, but she came up to me. She basically stood up to me. Out of everyone in the group who was sort of following me as little queen bee, she sort of stood up and went, you know what, this isn't okay. And I've spoken to the group and no one's okay with how you're treating everyone. And you're just going to sort of back off now. And so for it was about 6 months of the last year of primary school. So it was just before I was about to go to high school. All my friends were gone. So I went from being, the most popular kid in school to having absolutely no one wanting to hang out with me. And it was, at that time, it was destroying. I remember my mum was such a huge support of me. She used to count down the days on the calendar going, you've only got 40 days left of this year and then you're never going to have to see him again. And I would cry on my way to school. Anyway, again, an example of, I always talk about how, our biggest challenges become our greatest teachers. And of course, at the time, that was soul destroying for a 12-year-old who was just sort of, growing and learning. But that is what sort of propelled me into this people pleaser mode for so long. And again, like, I went too far the other way. Instead of being super cocky and arrogant and whatever I want, I went into whatever you want, I will do anything that you need. I want to make sure you're feeling okay. And it's taken until my 30s to balance that out a little bit. But I'm so grateful for that experience and to be able to see both sides of the spectrum, to understand people a little bit better. I don't know how I got onto that tangent. You're welcome.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And I think a lot of people will relate because so many things in our childhood affect us. And it's incredible that you can pinpoint that exact moment. Most people don't. I often time regress my clients with neuroenergetic techniques to bring them back to that moment, like, oh my God, this is why. And when you realize, like you have, everything starts to heal. And it can take years.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
And then finding love for that person instead of looking back going, I can't believe she did that. It's like, I love her. And if I ever bump into her, she's going to get so freaked out because I'm going to be like, can I hug you, please? Let me hug you. You did so much for me. Like, I can't imagine what sort of person I would be. But so I just want to get back to what the amazing work that you're doing at the moment. What do you love most about your job? What is it that sort of brought you in here and made you go, this is what I want to do? And what's your favorite part?
Well, obviously working with powerful women. I've had my clients, I love my clients. I know everybody says this, but seriously, I feel like I attract incredible women who are so powerful and just so willing to step things up in general. And I feel like it's a blend. What I'm doing right now is a blend of everything I love. It has this creator aspect of things, like the artistry and the aesthetics of creating a brand, and also the energetics and the evolution and everything we've been talking about of the human, and that transformation to really help them step into their potential, and allowing me to be the vessel or like that container where it happens, which is why my business is called Identity Sanctuary, because it does feel like it's a bit of a container where people come in and, all these things, and it's sometimes not very pretty and it's chaotic, and it's cathartic. There's no other way to explain it. And then they come out kind of dizzy, still trying to find their ground, but as a new brand, as a new person, because that's what personal branding is. It's not just like a stamp and a logo. It's really owning your personality and really learning how to step into that potential that you know you've been craving to step into, but you just don't have the courage or the pathway or the blueprint to actually do it. So yeah, it's just really, really fun. It's really fun. I love it.
That is so beautiful. And you're making me so excited for the work that I'm stepping into, because I can imagine me saying the exact same thing 6 months from now.
You're going to love it.
That's the thing. It just looks incredible because, like you said, you've got so many different things that you love happening. And I mean, when it comes to your work as well, you can tell that you've been around, you've done your research, you know what you're talking about. So all of the content and all of the education and material is fantastic. But can we just talk about the aesthetic for a minute? Because I mean, how do you do that? How do some people just have this, like, you have a photo of like 2 cups in one shot and then a photo of like a shirt in another and then you in another, and you would think, how does this make sense? But you look at it as a whole thing and you're like, everything is just so beautiful. It's just so perfectly placed. How is there like a filter that you make it all look similar, or is it just listening to your soul? What is it?
It's a bit of everything. I have been creative. I used to be an artist growing up and had exhibitions and things. So I do have awareness of the composition of things. But the way to do it is, if you want to research sacred geometry, everything I do has something to do with, universal truths and stuff. So sacred geometry is, like the geometry of nature. And of course, Mr. Zuckerberg was not going to use anything else but the top thing. So everything created on Instagram and other platforms too is based on the golden mean on sacred geometry. So if you create your pictures, your photos using that grid, because it's essentially a grid, and your phone, you can have it too, when it's divided into 4s or 3s, depending on the actual Canva you're using. It just magically flows. And yes, filters. I know a lot of people who are pro authenticity are against filters. I'm 100% pro filters, and it's not for, morphing your body or changing your face or your anything. For me, it's a vibe. You cannot have a look or a vibe, really. Like, your brand is, you're trying to convey an emotion, and we are ripped from colors from childhood. Everything becomes black and white, and I know I'm a minimalist and I use neutrals, but color, the undertone of things, can really make people feel, and it can trigger dopamine or serotonin or all these chemicals in our body. So you have to be able to use color to convey your brand, and your brand should essentially be an emotion. Pick your filter and stick to it.
That's beautiful. So, okay, I'm going to do that, because I have just sort of gotten to the point where I'm like, I want it to look nice. Like, all of the messaging is getting out there, and that's great. But I want just for me, like, when I look at my page, I'm sure no one's even looking at my profile. They usually just see one photo or reel at a time, right? But just for me, I want to look at it and go, that's aesthetically pleasing. True. If people want a deeper look. But so I've got to pick a filter, and then do I just hope that the person who created that filter never deletes it, or do you just have a backup?
No. I make my own filters on Lightroom. So what I would recommend, you can go to creativemarket.com. You have incredibly talented designers and artists making filters and templates of all sorts. You can download a few filters. They're normally in packages, because you need, I say one filter, but in reality I have like 12. Depending on the light that you use when you're shooting, you'll need something different to make it look the same. But if you have something like Lightroom, you can always just bring up the shadows or give it an undertone and create a vibe. And what you can do is just put an ideal picture of whatever conveys the emotion you're trying to convey. So inspirational normally has like lots of oranges and teals kind of thing. Or moody is usually a bit deeper and darker and deeper shadows. So you can always YouTube. It's all out there. That's how I learned.
Yeah.
And then you start editing things, and you just find your vibe eventually. It's a fun process. You're going to love that one.
Yes, seriously. And thank you for that tip, because hopefully some of the listeners are probably going through this same sort of thing as well. That is
Yeah.
fantastic. So we do have to wrap up soon, but I have a couple of questions that I would love for you to help the listeners with. The 3 C's. So I feel that people who are really in their vibe, on their path, have sort of mastered the 3 C's. For me, that's clarity of the vision that you're heading towards, the confidence to back yourself to perform to get to that vision, and then consistency and keeping up that momentum, that action, that, you know, whatever it is every day that you need to do, checking those boxes, sort of thing. So could you give us a little bit of your own personal advice about, let's start with clarity. How do you go about crystallizing the vision, what you want to head towards? What if you have 50 things that you love doing? Because I mean, I've been there too. Oh my gosh, it sounds like you probably have too.
Yeah. Clarity. I would say go back to priorities. It's reaching clarity. Everybody talks about clarity, but it's probably the hardest thing to find. You need to really, really sit down with yourself and say, right, where do I want to go? Who do I need to be to get there? And what kind of action do I need to take to become that person? Never mind to get there, but to become that kind of person. And sort of reverse engineer everything in a way that you start with the smallest steps. Whether it is, you know, skipping the coffee in the morning, or going for a run, or posting a story, never mind a post, a story every single day. And you start with small steps and start building habits. I think that's what will bring you clarity. And it's a lot of trial and error. You have to be very, very gracious with yourself, because you're going to fuck it up. and that's how we learn. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. We're taught, you know, like, oh, you can't fail, or oh my God, you're a loser. Failure is fantastic. This is how we learn. This is how we evolve. So fail fast and fail plenty. The sooner the better.
That is
That's how you
brilliant.
find
I
clarity.
love that. I want that on like a bumper sticker on my bedroom wall or something like that. Like, honestly, just
Yeah,
failure
100%.
is fantastic. Failure is fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was one of those people who was really hard on myself when I started to realize I wanted to change.
Same.
I needed to change who I was to get where I wanted to be. The biggest hiccups, the things that held me back the longest and took the longest time for me to get to where I am, was just that self-judgment. And it was, yes, you would take 4 steps forward and then maybe 3 back, but you still have made progress. And those 3 back have been your greatest teachers for that day or that week or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So I love that. So what about confidence? How do you think people maintain or even begin if they feel like they don't have any confidence at all? Like, what would you suggest they sort of start to look at?
Confidence, it's not
right?
something we're born with. I actually wrote a post on this yesterday. It's not something we're born with. It's a muscle. So again, little wins will give you the confidence. It's not going to happen overnight. If you want to start a YouTube channel but don't feel comfortable in front of the camera, don't start by recording a YouTube video, because that's going to be devastating. You know, start showing up on Instagram, little stories, maybe play with your phone, record yourself while you're having conversations, and little wins will really build your confidence. There's an incredible book. I think it's called The Confidence Code. Very well researched. I'll send you the link. I think that's what it's called. Fascinating.
Amazing.
If you're into science and research and everything, and I know you are going to love this, because it just changes your perspective completely on how to build confidence and what it actually is, and why women are genetically engineered differently than men to build that confidence. Yeah, fascinating. Highly recommend.
Oh, yes, please do send. Oh, I'm excited. Beautiful. And so what about the last one, consistency? How would you go about the consistency side of it?
Consistency, pull out yourself from the equation. Your opinions, your emotions, your mood, totally irrelevant. Consistency is about habits. It's non-negotiable. If you want to do something, you say, right, if I want to build an audience, I need to post every day. Or if I want to eat healthier, I need to, just have more salads. this is what I need to do. You map it out, you create a blueprint, you know exactly what you need to do every single day, and you go out and do it. Oh, I don't feel like it. I really want a chocolate, or I'm too tired, or my hair is messed up. I can't post. Tough cookie. Just get on with it, get it over with, and deal with it the next day. Consistency is a habit. Yeah.
That is so
I learned that the hard way.
Yes, same. And it was the non-negotiables was a big thing for me. So I sort of have, and I still do today, I have my list of what I want to do, but I also then, so my list might be this big, but my non-negotiables are like 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
So it's like, no matter what, when I go to bed at night and I know that I have achieved my non-negotiables, I've kept the deal with myself, which then boosts my confidence, and it's keeping me on my path towards the right goal. So it all sort of ends up tying into the same sort of thing. But that's fantastic advice. Like, get yourself out of the equation and just do it. Tough cookie. What'd you say? Tough cookie?
Tough cookie.
I love it.
That's so American. Just do it.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, Dee, thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you for so long. I'm sure I've got to have you on again soon. Like,
I'd love that.
Honestly, thank you. Oh, thank you for all of the work that you're doing, because you're such a great example of what I want to see more of. And the past model would have sort of been, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. And it's not that at all. It's like, look at her shining, like she's doing what I want to do, and she's doing it so well. But you're radiating, and you can see that in your posts. And even if it's a post where you're just like, you know, you might not even necessarily be smiling too big, you're radiating still, and it's because you are in your soul work. And this is what I want for everyone, right? To just be in their authentic self. So thank you for everything you do. And because we spoke about it, and because you reminded me, I'm going to have to sign off with my favorite. Stay you. But yes, stay you, stay true to everyone. And I'll talk to you soon, Dee. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.